If you're a patient that just needs to stop your hair from getting worse from where you are, then you'd never need a hair transplant. The hair transplant is really not to be considered unless you want to use that extra hair to build something on top of your potential hair opportunity.
Dr. Ray Nettles is redefining hair and hormone health with data-driven precision, transforming patients through custom biochemical insights. Get ready for a conversation about real results and lasting health.
Welcome back to today's episode of Ask Dr. Ray.
All right. Hello, Tracy. Welcome back to Ask Dr. Ray.
All right. So today we have a very good topic that people keep asking about all the time, and that is hair transplants.
All right. Hair transplants. That's a good service if you need it.
Yes. So you used to perform hair transplants, right? So what made you change and now you don't need to do them anymore?
All right. Good question, Tracy. So I used to perform them. So I learned the skill set. I trained with Dr. Robert Elliott years ago, and I learned how to do the single follicular unit transplant. And they turned out the best if you had to do the hair transplants. And I wanted to learn how to do the hair transplants so that in case the program that we customized for the patients would not work, I would have a backup plan. So that was my mental thinking. And I always wanted to know how to do it. So I learned how to do the procedure, probably performed 100 of them. There were a couple of clinics looking to hire a hair transplant surgeon, and I did that for years. And then I started offering my program to the patients, and I would say to them, if this program does not work for you, no evidence by the end of the year, I'll give you a credit back towards the hair transplant. And everybody thought that was a good idea. They had already signed up for the hair transplant or hair restoration procedure, and I threw them a curveball. Mm-hmm. After a couple of years, after about 3 years of offering the hair transplant credit in case the program did not work, I had performed 0.0 transplants over the course of the next 3 years. I didn't even feel comfortable, Tracy. I couldn't perform a hair transplant procedure today to save your life. So fortunately, the program has worked every single time for the cases that it could work. Okay, now we've learned a lot over the last 20 years, the types of cases that make it very difficult to regrow hair using an optimal blood supply. Okay, and if you want to get into the cases that can't regrow hair with our repairing the blood supply, we can do that case next time.
Okay, so maybe in one sentence, when should you consider a transplant and when is it a mistake?
Okay, good. Wow. When should you consider a hair transplant? If you don't have a lot of information and you are losing your hair, you probably should consider it from the beginning. And then you get into the research and you figure out, hold on, what caused my hair loss to begin in the first place? And then you find underlying root cause, and then you realize that you can stop it from getting worse. And if you're a patient that just needs to stop your hair from getting worse from where you are, then you'd never need a hair transplant. Okay. Now, if you're a person that can stop it from getting worse and grow a little bit more back to the potential of your normal hairline, if that's you, then maybe you never need a hair transplant. Now, if you're the third type that want to stop it and then regrow it all the way to your potential, I'll say that 3 times, your potential hairline, and you still want a lower hairline, you will need a hair transplant.
Got it. Okay. All right. And I think let's look at some pictures of what it looks like after people have had transplants so people can get an understanding of that.
So I don't know if I answered all of them. So the hair transplant is really not to be considered unless you want to use that extra hair to build something on top of your potential hair opportunity. Okay, for example, I have a hairline called a forehead, and if you take 4 fingers and you start at your eyebrows, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm about a 3.5 head, usually 4 head, 4 fingers. Now, if you wanted to grow your hairline down to a 3 finger or a 3 head, you would have to transplant that part of your hairline. The problem is, look how thick my hairline is, Tracy. Using Stop and Regrow, my hairline is so thick. If I were to transplant hairs in, would it be noticeable? Absolutely. If I were to do a second transplant and thicken it up, would it be noticeable between my natural hairline and the transplanted after 2 transplants? Would it be noticeable? Absolutely. If you did 3 transplants in the same area, would it be as thick as my natural hairline? Absolutely never. So that's impossible. When God created us,
why is that? Hang on, let's stop that.
All right, good. So let's
because
figure
that's a
out
big point, right? Like,
why is that? Okay, the answer is, when you were created, God created the follicles to crisscross against each other in the hairline, but they are overlapping on top of each other. So you've got 5 hairs coming out of one follicle, and you've got another follicle on top of it, another top follicle on top of that with 5 hairs. And I'm going to go in there and put a hole in the middle of 3 follicles with 15 hairs and put one right in the center. Now, each hair follicle needs a blood supply, a very healthy blood supply. It needs to not have stress. They need to have their own room, their own space. If you planted 2 trees right next to each other, Tracy, would they both survive? Most likely not, right? So you can only put them so close to each other. Now, a lot of times people try to really high density hair transplant. They put the trees too close together, the hairs too close together. They do not grow, and people are upset. The other group, the hairs all grow, but they're too far apart. Were you happy that they all grew, or would you want some too close to not grow? So the truth is, no, a hair transplant can look okay. It will never look natural, and it will never look good, okay? But it will look okay. And we've done some cases. So by the time you come to see us, usually, sometimes a percentage of people have already gone down that route of hair transplants. They make our jobs more difficult, but not impossible. And we'll go over a couple of those cases. So it depends on the type of hair transplant, the number of grafts they put, where they put the grafts, how they pulled the hairs out, what the instrument they use to put in the transplant, the grafts. So there's a lot that goes into it. But we'll review some of the cases that have come through the office.
Okay. All right, good. Yeah. So basically, just to reiterate, what you're saying is it's not physically possible to plant the hairs as close together as they grow naturally when you're doing a transplant.
That sounds perfect, Tracy. I wish I'd said that myself, but that's exactly the point that I tried to make.
Okay, very good. And then the other thing you said that I heard was that transplant does not fix the underlying cause of the hair loss.
And if you say that out loud, it's silly that you have to say it out loud. You surgically removing hairs from one part of your scalp and putting them into another part of your scalp did not fix the underlying problem that made all the hairs fall out. Of course not, right? Of course not. And if you don't keep up with what caused it to fall out, you can never keep up with transplanting. No way. You have 100,000 hairs on your head. Just say you lose the top half of your head, which a lot of people do. There's 50,000 hairs. Now, how many hairs do you have left to transplant from, Tracy? So if you have 100,000, you lose 50,000. How many hairs do you have left?
50,000.
50,000. Now you've got to go through that 50,000 donor area, pull out a small amount to go cover an area that needs 50,000. How many do you want to take out of the 50,000 of your donor area to put into a 50,000 needing area? No, it's impossible. So no, transplant.
So if you take out 25,000, then you're going to have half as many everywhere, right?
It's a joke.
In fact, let's have a look. I have a picture of somebody that did that.
So people getting hair transplants, I think they'll figure out that it was the wrong decision, hopefully before they do the second and third one. Okay.
So this is somebody after a transplant, right?
All right, good. So this case here, Tracy, absolutely. This is a young man. You wouldn't think so, right? If you look at the scalp, this looks like it could be a 50 or 60-year-old man, but it's not. This is a mid 20-year-old. and the patient went down the wrong road. He had all of his hair that fell out, right? All of his hair fell out. So he thought, let's just go transplant it all in. So here's his natural hair on the side. That's all that's left. And a little bit back here. So once again, so there's 50,000 hairs that we need to cover. And they put in, I think this is after two cases, probably 3,000 grafts, 6,000 grafts. Okay. And this, Tracy, is 3 years after the last transplant. This was as good as a 2 transplant full head is ever going to look. And he still has some of his miniaturizing hair still left. In 10 more years,
he did, luckily.
When in 5 or 10 more years, when the remaining miniaturized hairs are gone, you will see noticeably all these little hair strands that have about 5 or 10 hairs each on them. This was going to be a hot mess. So he came to us. We put him on the topical and the oral. Please tell me you have that photo, because this hurts.
I do, yeah.
Oh, good. So we took this case.
Yeah.
We took this case and turned him into, drum roll. And look at this. And this is probably after a couple of years. I don't have my notes in front of me, but
18 months. Yeah, 18 months.
This is sensational. 18 months after the 2 hair transplants, we regrew all those nice hairs. You cannot even tell the transplanted hairs. And this is 18 months in. In another 18 months, forget about it. No, home run.
Yeah. Very good. And then I do have another picture I want to show of somebody after they've had 2 transplants. Let me find that one. This one. And this is, we don't have an after picture for him. Actually, we just have the before picture, but this one I think was too late by the time he came to us.
Oh, I remember this case. Yeah. All right. If you could zoom in, hopefully they can on their phones, but if you zoom in, you can almost see, there you go. Yeah. You can see the transplanted hairs, right? They look like doll's heads, right? Unfortunately. And that was the term that was used, doll's heads, because you can see all the hair is plucked in. But if you don't have an underlying miniaturized hair base to cover these big, thick hairs, no, it looks like doll's hair, a big, thick hair on a scalp with no hair around it. And that's very noticeable. So this patient had done 3 transplants, and you see all in the front just to cover his hair, but all of the back was just too far gone. And the underlying blood supply just was never strong enough to support growing hair. So you asked me earlier, which are the cases that are difficult for stop and regrow to work with? This is one. And over 10 years, we probably have 10 cases. Not everybody grows hair, but probably 10 cases. Which ones? This one, after 3 hair transplants and the underlying blood supply was just, and this was back when they were using larger holes to put in the hair transplants. So they damaged the blood supply to the point, and he did the strip method. So they cut the vessels 2 or 3 times. So no, he stayed for a year. We had no evidence of this turning around. So hair transplants, multiple hair transplants can be a point where we will not get evidence over the course of 12 months. So we had to let him go.
Yeah. Okay. And then I have another one where you were able to, in fact, you did the transplant for this one. You did the second transplant because you'd had one originally, I think, from someone else, and then you fixed it. Is what happened here.
Right. I remember this case. This was probably my last hair transplant case, and I know the guy very well. Yeah. So he came into me, and this is after we had not done any of the hair transplants in years. And I thought, okay, this will be the last one that I'm going to help him, because this was a pretty straightforward case. He came to me and he said, I don't want to do another hair transplant if I don't have to. And I said, okay. I said, the hair transplant that they did before, you can see they put little patches here, but his hairline was a mess. His hair started receding backwards, and you could see where the hair transplant was. So my goal was to use the stop and regrow program to regrow the hair back down to meet the hairline. And then I would take a small strip and I would just make a better frontal hairline. So if he wanted to pull his hair back, it would look decent. Okay. And then do you have his after photo?
Yeah, I do.
Happy as a lark. Happy as a lark. His after. Look at this is his after photo. So on his front, if you pull it back, which I see him every 6 months in the review, it looks so good. But can I tell as an expert the hair that was transplanted to transplants? Yeah, I can tell. He's still happy, and he's probably mid 60s now and started about to retire. So we did a good job. We accomplished his goal, which was giving him a nice hairline for the majority of his life.
Great. All right. Let's look at the picture you've got because you showed me one earlier today too of
All
a
right.
young
Right. So
patient
I'll
who
show
came
you
in.
a case that I have. So who is a good case for a transplant? It's someone that creates a long-term program. And like the last patient we looked at, he understood that transplants long-term were not the solution. But if you're willing to work with someone like myself to repair the underlying genetic deficiencies in the enzymes, first get the evidence that the program is going to work, about 12 months. Once you have the evidence that it's going to work, you can then do a hair transplant because long term, where your hairline will be. Okay. But that's the key, knowing where your personal hairline, everybody has a unique hairline, and Tracy's is almost down to her eyebrows, straight across. Some women
Yep.
have a straight across hairline, but as doctor here, I have a temple, and most men have temples. Some
Yeah.
men in their 20s, they think, oh, wow, 20s, I don't want to be bald. And they see the temples coming in their 20s, and they assume that they're going to be bald because of the temples. So they'll go find a doctor and they'll pay him enough money. And next thing, the doctor will make a hairline straight across like this. No man on earth has a hairline like
Which is a
that.
juvenile. Yeah, it's a juvenile hairline,
Hairline. So you're going
which
to,
is
all males are going to receive back to have a nice temple, which allows us a little bit of curves in our hairline. But if you go too early in your 20s and just to get some hair, imagine you got nice hair all over, but you just have a little bit of temples rising. They'll go in and transplant the temples. And we had a case that came to see us, and I'll show you the photo. And my goal was to grow the hair down to his potential to meet where they made him a hairline outside of his original hairline. And I'll share that photo with us right now.
okay.
All right. Do you see this, Tracy?
Yes, that looks looks like more than a temple though that he's missing.
All right. So does the surgeon matters? Yes, the surgeon matters. And also the understanding of the progression of hair. So when this patient went to see his doctor, his hairline was probably about right here. And the doctor thought, let me just put some hair and pull it down where you wanted. The problem is they're down here where Tracy, a woman's hairline
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
straight across. So our goal was to take his nice hair and just regrow this little bit of potential, but there is no way we're ever going to meet where they put the hair because there's too much of a
Right.
gulf where there's no hair follicle possible that could grow. He asked if he should do another hair transplant. And my recommendation was no, it's too far from the original hairline. And my recommendation was laser hair removal, just to remove it.
Oh,
Because
wow.
we grew his hairline. Now it looks very nice. Just remove the mistake. Just remove it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Couple more questions for you. What are the red flags? So if somebody is talking to a transplant surgeon, like if they're in that cases where, it is last resort, they've regrown everything, what are the red flags?
Red flags for seeing a surgeon. So the case was they've already regrown their potential hair. So that means they already found stop and regrow. I would just ask me and I'll
Yeah.
send you to the
Or
right
maybe not then.
one.
Maybe
See,
because one
that's
of the
see,
things
that's
people tell me all the time after they see the transplant surgeon is they say, I had a transplant and now my hair is still losing, right? So if the transplant surgeon did not tell them that they have to do something to stop it getting worse, right?
that you answered your own
Yeah.
question, right? Because if you found someone that truly stopped it and regrew it, I'll tell you 99% of the people that stop and regrow are happy as a
Yeah.
lark. when you find your potential hairline and your potential density, most people are happy and thrilled about it. It's for that
Yeah.
1% that wants a little bit of augmentation outside natural, outside of normal, outside of average. They want something more. And those are the ones that choose to make mistakes sometimes.
Yeah. Because I think the biggest revelation for me when speaking to people is that most people don't know that a transplant will not stop it from getting worse. So they think if they do a transplant, they're done.
And just how short of that thought, right? How superficial is that thinking? It's very short-sighted and without a lot of information and knowledge. And now today, especially with
Yeah.
Chat PTG and all these other
ChatGPT,
AIs, somebody should be able to help these people think a little better and at least more clearly get them to understand that you're going to need to do at least both. If you're going to do a hair transplant, you're going to need to do both. If you do stop and regrow, you can do just one. The transplant is fast, but the turtle can sometimes win the race over the rabbit in the long term.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right. And then quick question, PRP, do you think that helps a transplant or hurts a transplant?
All right. So PRP, does it help or hurt a transplant? So for starters, PRP is not going to help grow hair. Okay. So could PRP be used after a transplant using some sort of anti-inflammatory agents? Yes. But could you inject something into your scalp to be inside your body every day and control and repair enzymes and regulate them to make the amount of hormones that you want in your body to send the signal to your hair and regrow it?
No.
This is a joke. That's a joke. No, of course not.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. All right. Thank you. Any last words on transplants?
Tracy, when you retell my stories and rephrase them, you do such a great job. So hopefully I've done a good enough job giving some of the information and science behind why hair transplant surgery may not be for everyone, and it might not be for anyone.
Yes. Okay, very good. In that case, Doctor, thank you so much for your time today and for answering our questions. Let's come back next week with a new topic. And so if anyone has questions they would like, please send in your questions. Hi, if you like what you see in our episodes and you would like to see more, please make sure to like and subscribe. The link is below here. And in that way, we will notify you as soon as the next episode comes out. And next week is going to be a great one.